Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. We are joined by my partner in crime, Brock Ganeles, located in snowy, sunny, smooth Santa Fe. Don't let the smooth taste fool you out there. I am in the ATL shouting and gunshots ring out loud from the hills of Stone Mountain throughout the city. It is just absolutely crazy down here. But we are going to start today across the big pond and overseas where they have picked a pope at the Vatican. You know, we talk about the billions of Catholics that exist throughout the world. We talk about the pope's influence on the Catholic Church, obviously, but on others as well, because it seems to be that reach is further than I am really capable of understanding right now. Who does this really matter to, Brock, besides those Pope watchers, the people who study religion, Catholic University? Like, who does this really impact?
Well, as the ceremony, look, the Catholic Church has great ceremony, right? So, of
Right,
course, the
right,
selection of a new pope is a great ceremony in its own right. So, I guess that made for good television or good news stories. But yeah, when after the new pope was selected, I was like, does this matter? And how does it matter? Does it matter so my initial take was like, it doesn't matter at all. But you would
right,
hope that a world religious leader of any type would be trying to, emit a message of goodness to the world. You would
right,
hope that that's what religion is trying to do. But it's
right,
really funny how the American response, right? It's an American pope, I guess the first time ever. Interesting.
right.
They find, I don't know if that timing is
It's a little
coincidental
odd,
or whether
right?
they're that played into the decision. I don't know what goes on at the conclave. Didn't even watch the movie. But beyond that, it's really interesting to watch the reaction in America, right? And
Right,
how the immediate reaction here in the media is to search this new pope's social media history, like they do with everybody, to see
right,
what he's kind of thrown out there in the past. And
right.
of course,
They
he had
want
a
to know
couple
what his ideology is.
rips on JD Vance, and then MAGA immediately going to the negative and attacking the new pope because they don't like the pope's view on morality and
Mhm.
how society should work because it doesn't
Right.
fit their worldview. It's just kind of a weird backward, isn't it? That like a whole backward
It doesn't
thinking?
make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, you claim to be the party of family values and morality, and yet you turn your nose up at the brand new pope. Like, to me, that sounds rather sacrilegious. I mean, look at all the furor that was caused by Pope putting on the AI image of himself dressed as the pope. Leo the 14th, as he will be known, it's from Pope Leo the 14th, excuse me, is from Chicago. So I got a text immediately from one of my best friends. He grew up in the parish not far from his. So they're from the same town, but they attended different parishes. So he was very excited about it. And obviously, there's that feeling of proximity. So, he felt really, really proud and a sense of pride about an American being chosen, and especially one being from his hometown. He's not going to take kindly to the MAGA response. He already, doesn't get MAGA world, and this is just going to add fuel to his fire. But I wonder what kind of influence this Pope will have on our leaders here, and if he's able to. Because of his stance on morality, we know, that one side has absolutely no tolerance for anything that doesn't come, straight down the middle. So, what kind of influence will he be able to have on them? The guy speaks five languages and can read two more. They probably don't like that kind of intellect as well. So that's going to be a problem. I mean, I don't know how he can win over the Republican side of the aisle.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, first thing I saw that he was not pro LGBTQ, yet he was immediately out of the gate. The first depictions of him was that he was like very progressive, but then his views on gays in the church seemed very sort of, let's call it conservative, old school. But
Right.
yet then MAGA was unhappy with him anyway because he took some personal attacks on JD Vance, particularly. He made some positive comments about Black Lives Matter and particularly sympathy for George Floyd and his family. And of course,
Sure.
MAGA world doesn't even like the sympathy, right, for
Right.
someone who dies. But I don't know if the impact is there. I think we have just bastardized religion so much in this country
Yeah.
that we've just turned religion into another arm of politics,
Right.
and that the two are not separate entities anymore, right? Jews do
Right.
it too with Israel, and like, go ahead, Netanyahu's just carpet bombing Gaza for years at a time, and it gets bundled into religion that you have to support Israel no matter what. White evangelicals, like, is there a religion there that they're hyping? It just seems to be a money-making scheme and a power movement to kind
Right.
of reorient American life, Project
Right.
2025-ish. Like, is it even tethered to religion anymore? So, I'm kind of, I'm not a religious person myself,
Right.
so I don't see a huge impact. I kind of just see the Pope gets thrown into our political civil war like everything else does.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
Can
Another
the Pope be
rail.
outside of the discourse?
I don't think so. Not with his views, and not as we try to keep up with the times. A pope that's trying to keep up with the way life is. It's not just here. It's all over the world, right? They've got 14 or 15 trans athletes in Europe too. I mean, it's not just here. It's everywhere that the Pope's voice is heard. And it's interesting too because I always reflect on that meme that I've seen so many times living down here in the Bible Belt. Stop walking around with a mouthful of scripture and a heart full of hate, right? It's so antithetical to the South, right? To be in the Bible Belt and to have some of the worst atrocities inflicted upon mankind,
Yeah.
right? That came from hate, right? And it was all born in hate, and it was about owning other human beings. None of these teachings, which are in, the Bible, the church, right? Down here we have these mega churches, right? And it's the most segregated day of the week, right? If you go to one particular kind of church, you're going to see an all-white congregation.
crowd.
Right. You go to, AME Zion or Southern Baptist Church, you're going to see an all-white, all-black congregation. Right, so it just depends on where you go to get your message, right? And I don't have a problem with you, having faith and being faithful and understanding, the teachings of the Bible. But if you're gonna be faithful, right? If you're gonna follow the teachings of the Bible, right? How are you out here not wanting to feed the kids? How are you out here wanting to
I've always just felt, I've always just kind of felt like it's a fraud because I've always just see people cherry picking what they want, right? The Bible is like, to me, it's like it's too long a book, right? Because it's got something for everyone. So everyone just will cherry pick. Because like, how can you be, you're pro-life, so you're anti-abortion, but then you're also for like the fact that the government can kill somebody as a part of like your criminal justice system. So like, how do those two things even intersect, and how can they hold up in the same sentence, so to speak, right? I'm pro this, I'm pro life, but I'm also pro killing, and okay, because the Bible tells me so. Like, how could it possibly be that?
Well, we don't have to be even that controversial about it. Let's just go right to the fact where the hypocrisy is what gets me. It's like, how do you, square the fact that you don't want people to give up their children. You don't want them to have the choice, but then you don't want to feed them and protect them and clothe them and make sure that they are safe once they get here. Right? It's like our gun rights. Like, we don't want to do anything
Once they're alive, yeah.
things. So, shootings are the leading cause of death for school-age children. I mean, it makes no sense. The hypocrisy of it is mad.
It's too big, but it starts to be getting right. It starts the hypocrisy of like the whole European white, world that started, centuries before us. It's like, how does a kid get born in the Middle East and pop out as just a lily white guy? Like,
Right.
how is it even possible? Because everyone else getting born in the region is, has a different
Proud.
shade to them. But
Right.
somehow this one person pops out and, looks like a white guy that was born in Dubuque, Iowa. And it's just like,
Right.
it's kind of like with the Santa thing. Santa's got to be
Yeah.
like, but it just, so to me, the hypocrisy starts from, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so I don't think the Pope's gonna have anything to say for it. But as I was thinking about this Pope issue and religion issue, it got me to thinking about something Mike Waltz said the other day when he
Mhm.
was talking, and you might not see the connection, about when he was talking about that let's stop talking about the government as a business, because the government is not a for-profit entity. That's not the job of the government. The government's job is the well-being of its
The
citizens.
thing.
And
Yeah.
it got me to thinking, like, that's supposedly religion should be about the well of all
Oh,
the
wow.
creatures on earth, right? The flock.
Right.
And even people who aren't in that specific flock they're looking out for, right?
Right.
So it just got me to thinking how capitalism has just overtaken American thinking on all fronts, to where the scorecard has become money or the stock market and how our economy's doing. When,
Right.
like, the scorecard should be, what is the life expectancy
Right.
of an American?
Hello.
And what is the quality of life getting to that point? And literally our life expectancy is in decline, because as a country we're not looking out for the well-being, because we've so fallen in love with the businessman aspect of things, which is in
Right.
theory what Doji's about, like
Right.
the efficiency of government. Well, I don't care if government's slightly inefficient if it's helping you
Right.
live a longer life, and certainly if it's helping you
Exactly.
live a healthier, better life. So that's where I kind of made the connection between that comment and like what
Makes
religion
sense.
was all about, because religion to me was supposedly all about everyone's well-being, maybe their
Right.
spiritual well-being along with their physical well-being, and the
Right.
government is really just focused on our physical well-being.
Right.
Government can stay out of the spirit side of it, right? We'll leave that to religion.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it got me back to thinking we lost our we
Right. Absolutely. And I agree with you 100% on that. And the connection makes perfect sense, because when you talk about keeping the flock safe, that doesn't mean cutting air traffic controllers, right? Like, if you've got air traffic controllers saying don't fly into a particular airport, that's a problem. And my son did the unthinkable yesterday, Brock. I was on pins and needles. He had to go up there for something to do with his medical situation from, his hockey days. And he flew into Newark on United and flew out on Delta in the same day. I couldn't function last night until he landed. Like, I mean, I was, and when I texted him, you better keep an eye on Newark Airport. They got some stuff going on there, the equipment, the runway, the weather, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he said, yeah, I'm getting updates on my phone. Like, that was his level of concern. Meanwhile, you're driving across the country 3,000 miles to
there's no
avoid.
I was going to ask you, was he nervous on takeoff and landing? But I guess he kind of, figured the
Hey,
odds were
ignorance is
still.
bliss.
I know the odds are still that you're not good. Nothing's going to
Right.
happen.
Right. Why take the chance? And
Flights
speaking of,
available into LaGuardia, or did he specifically have to go to New Jersey or
yeah,
JFK even?
I think the meetings that he was having was on the Jersey side, so he
New
just wanted
Jersey,
to be
sorry.
closer. Yeah, and
Whew,
so he
okay.
was able to rent a car and drive to the places, and then get back to the airport last night. So I didn't even want to talk to him. I saw a text that said I boarded, and then about an hour later I checked the flight aware to see where his flight was, and he was halfway down the East Coast. So I was like,
Okay,
oh,
you're
thank
just
you,
okay. Thank
Jesus.
God. Yeah.
Right. But it's one of those things where I mean, he's right. It is not a business. It's not a for-profit entity. It's not designed to make money off the backs of the American people. But that's exactly what they're using it for. And that's exactly what AOC and Bernie are saying. These people do not need to get richer off their ability to manipulate the government and to manipulate the levers of power and control. That's exactly what they are saying. Stop letting the oligarchs, right, chart the course for them to enrich themselves. And that's what has people furious. And then we can get into all the other stuff, that's wrong, especially like life expectancy. We are like the lowest on the scale of industrialized nations, right? Because we get the hell worked out of us by our bosses. We're getting rid of OSHA regulations, right? So oligarchs can make more money. We're doing all the things that will allow people to make more money, right? But don't necessarily do anything to safeguard our longevity on this planet. And that's like patently disgusting, and it's been a recurring theme, since I remember when I first got in television in the early 90s, I couldn't understand why Republicans just kept saying we need to get rid of, Medicaid. We need to get rid of, health care for everyone is not, viable. No one should have health care unless they can afford. I couldn't understand why they were saying, why would you want people? And now I understand, right? It's all a money grab, right? So I can pay less taxes, right? And have more in my coffers, meanwhile you die on the side of the road from exhaustion because you haven't been to see a doctor in 100 years. And it just makes no sense. It's not a good governing strategy. It only works here because of the culture wars. That's the only reason it's worked here. You don't have, the melting pot of populations in other countries for that to work.
Yeah, you can't get away with it because you can't
Yeah,
find an issue that would get people to vote so against what is in
right,
their own health, right?
right,
You can't
right.
get that in other countries. So here you can get people to vote against, quote, their self-interest because they
Yeah,
just want that social hierarchy of white dominance. You can do whatever. I mean, MAGA can do whatever they want to their, quote, voters. They get them anyway,
they get
right?
it
Like,
anyway.
just don't lose them.
Right, right. And see, and that's, I think that's where we are now, right? Because a lot of these folks were MAGA voters, right, that are out here complaining about the Social Security checks. A lot of them were MAGA voters that are claiming, upset because grandma's not getting her Social Security check, right? They didn't expect to lose their jobs. They expected them over there to lose their job, not us. You weren't supposed to do that to us. What is this Doji thing? What do you mean? What do you mean I'm out of here because I was probational? So, I mean, think about the craziness in that, Brock. You get a promotion, right? You're in a probationary period for this new gig that you were promoted to. They fire you because you're probationary. Wait a minute, the government has been working like this. This is a badge of honor to be probation.
And now, of
It just
course,
makes no sense.
you just searched on the word probation and you got fired because like
Right,
they didn't even realize that it was like a term of excellence in the
right.
government. That's how incompetent it was. But the outcome is just a less effective
Yeah,
bureaucracy, a less effective government. But Musk and his crew, and Trump doesn't know what the fuck's going on, right? Because he's just deranged, he's lost his mind. But
right.
Trump and the Project 2025 people, they don't care.
No,
Money's
you can
flowing
care
their way.
less. Yeah.
So
And they said this was what they wanted to do. They warned
they
you.
just don't care.
They don't care. And and that's the sad part that, these Christo fascists, whatever you want to call them, people have their hand so deep into our pocket now. I don't know how we get them out. Like, are we going to have an election in 26, right? With these committees and these numbers, and we couldn't even get an election. We couldn't even get an investigation into the 24 election to make sure it was on the up and up. I mean, after she lost all 7 swing states, we should have automatically
I
triggered
mean,
an investigation. I
there's
mean,
no,
that made
we talk about this all
things
the time. We can't rely on elections to dig ourselves out of it.
no,
Like we don't have the time, and you
nope,
can't trust what's going on with the government above you that they'll ever be fair. Which is why we're ultimately going to have to win this fight on the streets. There's Project 5051 has definitely put June 14th is on the calendar to do marches everywhere in every state as
right,
we're done, on May Day and the one I went to back in early April. I forget the date of it. And they've
right,
been consistent. And it's fantastic and they continue to grow. But my stance, and I think you're on board with it, is that June 14th, there should be a concerted effort. Like Washington, D.C. should be destination one. And then if you can't make it to DC, you go to your local state level one if you can't make the trip. But
right,
anyone who can get to DC should go to DC It should be a total disruption of
Yeah.
Trump's military parade. That parade should be blockaded by
Yeah.
human bodies and not allowed to happen so that Trump can get embarrassed on the
Yeah.
world stage that
Yeah.
he can't even pull off a military parade in his own country because the people won't let him. And I
Right.
can't imagine anything that would be more disempowering of a
Right.
leader than his populace not allowing him to have a military parade.
Absolutely.
And I'm just waiting for that to be the call to
Right.
arms amongst the people.
Right.
And
see,
all we have to do is stand there, right? All we have to do
Right.
there is get out there early in the morning before shit starts and just flood the streets. And
no.
what are they going to do?
Right.
Parades,
And
the parade would not happen.
DC is so small anyway. It doesn't take a lot, right, to cause a major disruption of the main thoroughfares there. And last time, remember, think about what the Army told him last time. The Army and the military brass told him, dude, you can't be running our equipment across, regular,
Don't
streets.
do it.
Yeah. First of all, you don't need to display the strength of our military. That's not something we do here in our democracy, right? We don't need a military parade at home because we don't have to flex our muscle on our own people. I mean, this is basically what he's doing. He's trying to let us know, and I guess the world too, but the military is at his beck and call. And I'm surprised we haven't seen pushback. I know Hegseth is in there burning the place down from the inside out, but I'm sure they're getting a lot of pushback because there's been so much social media from soldiers just laughing at Keg's breath about what a joke he is. And he's trying to be like, this, I'm a soldier too, I'm a man of the people type guy, and everybody's laughing at him because he doesn't know how any of it works, right? And he makes a fool of himself every time he speaks. What was the latest thing he said? No more pronouns, no more this, no more that.
Yeah, trans.
No woke stuff.
Yeah, they got their trans ban at least upheld for the meantime.
Right.
So like that's a big victory for him, like as if it matters to anyone else on the fucking planet, right? The whole point of the military is for us to be safe, right? The safety of the American people. But yeah, I mean, look, obviously, American citizens, we have the numbers, right? It's a matter of showing up. We'll know what the path of the parade is. Yeah, they'll barricade some shit, but when you talk millions of people, it's just an overwhelming, show of, in essence, people power. And the military's not there to gun down their fellow citizens. And
No.
so, it would force Trump's hand, and I think it would embarrass him. And, it's his birthday, it's military day, whatever. I think it would be the ultimate embarrassment. And I think that's what the American people have to do to Trump is punch him in the nose and embarrass him. And it would, disempower him. And maybe that would be a wake-up call to some of the MAGA-lites that are in Congress also to be like, whoa, this guy can't even, pull off a military parade. This is going the wrong direction. And maybe some of them will backpedal.
Right.
I'm not betting on it, but I'm hoping.
So, we need somebody to get that message out. Who is the right messenger there? Who is the right person to get that call to action going to get to DC, so we can, make a huge statement. I mean, the 50-50 ones have been great. They've been great because people have turned out in huge numbers. But I would love to go gum up the works in DC. I just really
50-51 can do it and say, hey, our primary march is in DC. If you can't make, DC, here's 50 others that you can do as you've been doing. Indivisible can do it. They're on top of this as well. I think there's even some group that was going to have a march for Medicaid on the same day. But this is one of those things where it's great that we have all these, subject level marches going on. But really this gets back to unifying and saying we're all there for one big reason, which is we got to figure out how to unseat and disempower Trump and basically overwhelm Project 2025 and first stop the negative and then let's talk about what we're going to do when we get back into power, which the politicians now are starting to pick up on that theme, is that you can't just say what you're against. You have to start talking about what you're for. But, first we have to stop what we're against, right? We have to stop the negative and then turn the ship around.
Right.
Like what we said, we got to get out of reverse and at least get into neutral, and then we can talk about what getting into drive looks like. I
Right.
mean, I think we're gonna be a part of beating this drum,
Oh, no
but
doubt.
I think it's the organizations that have really been getting the numbers are the ones that could make this transition and say, hey, let's make a big showing in DC. And I'm not sure why even the veterans could be like, fuck this military
Right.
parade. Like
Right.
we're coming to DC and we're marching. Who's marching with us against this bullshit military parade? Because of what you said, because this is what we do here. And oh,
Right.
by the way, it's all a fucking sham because as soon as you come home from, combat, we get treated like shit.
Right. Which makes no sense to me.
So
I'll never understand that.
maybe some of those military groups can be a part of saying we're going to block
Right.
this military parade.
Right. Bring some of those motorcycle groups in here and, shut that thing down in DC. I'm sure they'd love to take a ride. Those motorcycle clubs with the veterans in them, you know what I mean? With the cool vests and everything. Shoot, I like those vests, man. How do you get those? I know
And
you
it
probably
gets back to like, that whole thing where, the black influencers have been saying black people stay home. But, if there's a lot of veterans out there and a lot of white veterans out there, it's
You're
kind of
liable to
safer
go.
for the black people to be around them because, is
Yeah.
the current military going to shoot on the veterans because the
That's
veterans
right.
are pissed because they're being treated like shit and their health
Yeah.
care is being taken away? Like, is that
Right.
what our active duty military would do? Or would they be like, oh, I
And
get the
it's
streets blocked.
right. They're going to be asking the question, is this my future?
Yeah, this is
Right?
my
Is
future.
this me in 10
Why
years?
aren't they out
15
here?
years?
So I think maybe it's the veterans could be a key part because I think it would also be a nice show for the rest of us to be behind our veterans, right?
Right.
Hey, we're here for
Right.
them.
Right. You know,
Trump doesn't get
and
to wave his flag when he's not taking care of the veterans.
we still have that stain on us from the way we treated those vets that came home from Vietnam, who are still suffering, by the way, many of them. So, we've got to right that wrong as well. But this is not the administration that's going to do it. These are the people that are taking benefits away from first responders at, 9/11.
Yeah.
I mean, these people have no moral compass, and there is no bottom to how low that they will go.
Yeah, it takes us full circle to where we started talking about the Pope. It's like, where is the moral compass of
Right.
our government and our leadership? I
Exactly.
mean, it's
Does it exist?
does it exist? I mean,
So I would argue not. But that's going to be the last word for today, Brock. Thanks so much for joining in here, man. You should get outside and enjoy the beautiful
it is
sunset.
nice today. I am gonna get outside, sort of
Sweet.
this afternoon.
Go easy. We're older. Take it easy. Easy, slow steps.
It'll be slow steps. I'm gonna see a little bit of Santa Fe today. Yeah, Mark, good to speak to you. We'll pick up on it. I'm gonna hop on the Blue Sky and try to make a lot of noise about the 14th and see
Let's do
if
it.
we can get any of these other groups to get riled up about, pushing people towards DC.
Cool. All right, bro. We'll see you
Man.
tomorrow. Have a good one.
Okay, take care. Thanks, Mark.